are you going to do an introduction and play the...
I can do that.
Are we starting? Or don't put pressure on. Nobody likes pressure. Oh.
Is it me?
Oh, I don't know. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, people out there on the interwebs and things. This is the Walking Together podcast. Today I'm here with Jordan and Kyle. We're back. Again, 2 weeks in a row. It's a streak now. You better watch out.
That's right. We're back in the saddle.
What are we talking about today?
You want me to turn down the music first?
A little bit. That might help.
Just a little bit? Keep it going, though?
Ooh, subtle in the background. I get distracted really easily, so I apologize for all these nonsensical outbursts.
It's not nonsensical. It all makes sense.
We've been gone for a little while. I think we need to explain that a little better. I gave a couple excuses in the last podcast of why we haven't done one in a month, but anybody want to chime in?
Well, I'll just start and say my wife had a baby. I think last time you said I had a baby, but I mean, Kelsey really had him.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, if you say Kyle had a baby, people might think he had a food baby.
I've had many of those since May 5th.
Yeah, so
I'm glad you're staying regular, Kyle.
Kyle and Kelsey had a baby. May is also one of the busiest months of the year event-wise for the church, so which is a great thing. But you know, we're always going to put people in front of getting things done. That people are more important than podcasts and videos and publication and all that stuff. Those things are important to help keep people in the know and all that, but anytime we got a chance to be around people and love on people, we're going to do that first. We had a fish fry this month. We had outdoor worship. We had, what else did we do?
Beach worship. Started
beach worship every Sunday, which is a whole nother thing.
I went to 2 countries last month.
Jordan went to Texas, Mexico, Panama. I mean, he's world tour here.
Yeah.
Jordan, you want to say anything about your I think it's cool that we're, finally getting off the ground with international missions and, building relationships with.
Yeah. I went to Texas and met up with the board of directors for an organization called SER, S-E-R.
Do you know what that stands for? Something to do with
super expensive
salvation,
reptiles.
Salvation, education, and something
else.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know.
Yeah, I forget what the R is, but they work with.
But it's also the Spanish word for to be.
Yeah.
That's even super cooler. But SER, salvation, education, and something. But they teach kids. Jordan, tell you more about it. I've just heard Bobby talk about it a couple times.
We're going to get this.
I'm trying to find out what SER actually stands for here.
Recreation. I think they said that
I like
had
recreation.
Fun
I like it.
Oh man.
We'll find out before the end of this.
Okay. Salvation, education, and responsibility.
Oh,
see,
it was not recreation.
No,
it's all about responsibility and not fun.
Salvation, education, and they do a lot of recreation, because they do a lot of their outreach focuses on like VBS kids programs. But anyways, so yeah, I got to go and meet with the board members in Texas, and then we went down to Mexico and met with all the different Mexican pastors that they partner with to basically provide resources for them, financial resources for them to be able to do whatever God has felt, whatever they feel like God has called them to do. And a lot of it is church planning and church planting. I guess planning is involved with it as well, but and evangelism, and a lot of it again has to deal with doing kids programs. I met with about a dozen of those guys, and it was really cool because I've really only ever done like international missions to surfing destinations because they've just always gone hand in hand with me, surfing and
Of course.
yeah.
I mean,
Um,
if I can go play some golf, I'm going to play some golf. You know?
right? So I don't know. You know, those are just the places that up to this point in my life, God has I guess put in my heart a passion to go to. But so I met all these guys, and they're like in like way far, and they're not even close to the coast. They're in the desert, and these guys they live in little towns down dirt roads that. You know, they might be an 8-mile road, but it might take an hour and a half to go down 8 miles because the roads are so bad. If that is even, I guess it's possible because that's what they say, and I trust what I mean. They said it's bad. It's just dirt paths in the desert, and it's funny because I asked them. I said, "What happens if a sandstorm comes by and it like covers up all the tracks? Do you guys get lost?" But they said no. That I guess the sandstorms aren't that bad, but. I don't know, man. They're rad people. I mean, they're able to build a church with $4,000.
So yeah, I was amazed at when you and Bobby came back and were talking about like their budget needs. Like
it was like 12. So out of all the things that they kind of petitioned for the year to help their ministry to keep moving forward, it's like $12,000. Basically, you know, I guess if you break it down, $1,000 per pastor, but. And some of them ask for more. Some of them live in areas that it's easier to get resources and have resources. There's more people. They're near bigger areas and cities or whatever. But like I said, some of these places are literally out in the middle of nowhere, and so obviously there's not like a lot of jobs and resources where where they can.
You just can't go to the Ace Hardware.
They can't self-sustain. You know, they can't. You know it's kind of like in the church in Panama that you know that I spent quite a lot of time in. The church congregation is comprised of people that if they're making $30 a day, they're doing good. And so just imagine $30 a day having to feed your family, pay your bills, and then also have money left over to tithe. You know, I mean, you're looking at maybe having $5 a week if you're doing good to tithe per family. And if you've got 7 families that go to church, what's that, $35 a week of tithe money coming in? You know, that's not a lot.
Yeah. We could spend a whole, like this, that you saying that could turn, you know, it just reminds me of like how, you know, we could spend a whole podcast on just like the Americanization of church and just how like over and over I see the theme of in the Bible, like, you know, living simpler lives makes it easier to be closer to God and be more fulfilled because, you know, these from pictures I've seen and stories I've heard Bobby and Jordan tell, like these people are like, you know, like concrete floor and center block walls is like, you know, that's
life changing.
Yeah. And, you know, here we are complaining, you know, I complain when you walk out the door of your air conditioned house and get in your truck and you forgot something in your air conditioned house and you got to get back out and go get it. You know, you're like,
it's too hot. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of those guys, they don't have air conditioning. You know, that's why they don't really have windows in the house. You got to keep air moving through.
So you know, it's cool just to hear about. I hope, you know, one day I can see some of it and help with some of it. But you had mentioned, like, I'm just happy, like, you know, because a lot of times churches will spend time on, you know, well, we give so much to so many organizations or missions or whatever, and don't really, like, the whole point of having an opportunity to go somewhere is to build a relationship with people. And I'm glad that, you know, we have an opportunity to, like, to focus on one thing and not just this broad, like we're going to dump some money in this huge bucket, and you don't have any contact or relationship with what's happening. That's why I think God blesses you or gives you resources to put you in positions to build relationships with people.
It's easy to, not saying that sending money isn't a great thing, but it's easy. That's the easy thing to do, is to send money.
Right. The
hard thing to do is to give up of your time and of yourself to invest in people and, do that kind of thing. Some people just don't have the resources to give money. And, like I said, there's a reason that God allows people to have a lot of finances, because I mean, the way that the world works is you got to have finances, you know what I mean? You got to pay bills, you got to have lights on, but no, it's cool. The Panama trip was cool. We put a concrete floor in a house. It was really cool because the girl, I didn't know whose house we were putting the concrete slab in, because I had some other friends kind of find a place for me. I hadn't been to that town. I haven't been back to that town in 5 years or more. So they found a house, and I show up first morning that we're working on the job, and I recognize this little girl, and she wasn't a little girl anymore. She's 18, has a husband and 2 kids. You start that early in Panama, and especially in Catalina, by the way. You start having family by 16.
We used to start that early, back in the day. And
back it did really,
my grandma was 15 when she got married.
Right.
Mine was too.
So I guess it's all perspective. But anyways, but yeah, she was, her name is Alaris, and it's this girl who used to come to the church and come to all the VBS programs that all the missions teams would do. And so it was really cool to reconnect with her and her new family. I saw her mom, and they live right next to each other. How they work is they got like a plot of land for the family, and as the family grows and they get the kids get older and they start their own families, they just build a little house right next to the parents' house. But yeah, it was cool to reconnect with her and get to provide something for their family. The husband, I talked with him quite a bit, and he was like, it was definitely a God thing, because like 2 weeks prior for us coming, 2 weeks prior before I asked my friends to go out and find a place, he had talked with his cousin about wanting to start getting together the resources and the finances to be able to put a concrete floor in his house. He was like, this is what my family this is the biggest need my family needs right now to kind of move forward with our home and everything. Because at that point, they had a roof covering and then maybe like an 8x8 room that had block walls, and that was their bedroom, but everything else was dirt floor, like inside the house. So where their kitchen is, where their bedroom is, the bed is sitting on dirt, on clay dirt floor. But he has said that's what he wanted, and it's cool because God provided that for him, through Christian Surfers, the team that was put together to go down there, and so it was cool for me to point out, for him, because he said, yeah, that was something that he desired in his heart, and I said, well, that's a God thing, man. God hooked you up, and so then I got to go into, reading, sharing some scripture with him on, once you recognize God providing in your life, like there's got to be a response to that. The response should be being thankful and honoring God, with recognizing that he was the one that provided, and not just some dumb luck or, whatever. And then moving even beyond that with honoring him with your life, with everything that you do. So it was a cool trip, man. I was stoked on it, and the waves were super good. But it was a good trip.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we've been the past month, and part of the reason we haven't got together to do a podcast. But I think that was better. It's way better when you can spend time with people than just sitting in a room talking about it.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if today, I guess we had some sort of a plan of talking about something, but I love how, we just get together and kind of let God direct where we're going, and it, talking about missions and, what's been going on the past month and why we haven't done a podcast. One of the questions that come to my mind was just like, or even just going off of Jordan sharing about going to Mexico and Panama, like, why it almost seems like it's being in America, it makes it harder to be closer to God just because of all the comforts and excess we have, and you don't even realize it because you just get caught up in everything that is pushed out there, social media and everything is so instant now, and I don't know if we should spend a little time talking about that.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
They do have some sense of that in the places that I've been in Central America, and I mean they still have. It's interesting because they might not have iPhones, but almost everybody has a smartphone, and so you can still be involved with all that. But yeah, you're right. It's like in America, you don't really look at it as God providing because we have for the most part, most of us have the availability of getting up in the morning and going to a job and making the money that we need to pay our bills and buy the things that we want. Whereas other people in countries like Panama and Mexico, that's not really like a luxury that they get to have. And so they, for the most part, have this bigger necessity to trust in a God to provide those things for them. But then on the flip side of it too, I've seen where you almost get like in the Job situation where you feel like your life's so terrible, you almost like on borderline cursing God for it, and then because you don't understand why certain things are happening to you, you just decide I'm just not even going to follow God because what's the point? Job was there. He mentioned it a couple times. It's like, what's even the point? Like, and then his wife was like, why don't you just curse God and die?
So we're, going through the Bible in a year as a congregation, and we're in the book of Job now, and that's kind of why Jordan brought that up. And it's funny how, people say, you don't know exactly when Job was written or who wrote it or what the timeline is, and some people place it before. And I'm saying that like, why was it placed where it was placed in our Bible? And even if it's before some books or after others, it's cool how, we've been in First Kings and Second Kings and Samuel and Chronicles and all this history, and all these people just constantly, a new king comes and they go back to worshiping idols, and then they get in trouble, and then God punishes them and redeems them, and they're like, oh, thank you, God. And then as soon as they have a victory or celebrate, it's like they fall again, and it's this constant back and forth, and it just kind of leaves you hopeless. Like, we're a hopeless people because we're just terrible. And then you get to Job, and I get reminded, like, I love the last 4 or 5 chapters when Elihu is reminding Job of who God is and God's power, and then God finally responds to Job, and God's like, asks him all these questions, and like, who perfectly balances the clouds in the sky, and who, brings the sun up in the morning, and have you ever seen a mountain goat born, and, do you know why a donkey's wild, and just all these things, and you're like, I don't know the answers to any of that.
I've never seen a mountain goat being born.
Right. And
I don't think I've seen anything but a human being born.
It's just,
and that's scarring.
Yeah. Yes,
that's a whole nother avenue.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
No, and it's just, and then somewhere around chapter 38, God says, if you can't even understand natural physical things, how can you begin, and it might be Elihu who said it, how can you begin to understand God's character and will? And I'm just reminded, like, I'm not deserving of anything. And Job even says, puts his hand over his mouth and says, I'm nothing. I need to shut up. I'm not going to say anything because you've just reminded me of how small I actually am.
Yeah.
And it kind of, Job being placed after all of that rising and falling of a nation, that, there's hope that of why we place our hope in God and who God is. And it just kind of springs you forward into the next parts of the Bible for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Even through all of the questioning and the frustration that Job had, he directed it all towards seeking God instead of running away from God. It wasn't really ever like excuses on, well, this has happened, so I'm just going to not even pay attention to God. He wanted to know, he wanted to know God more, I think really with the intent of understanding what was happening to him, but he was seeking God in all of those things, and he persevered seeking God through all those things. And, but yeah, you mentioned it earlier, Nick, that, we have a lot of questions about doctrine and about faith and about a lot of these things that we'll never know, like the true answer of age of accountability or, whatever. And it's like, well, how are we supposed to know that the age of 7 is the age of accountability, or that, that all dogs go to heaven, or, like whatever, like there's some things that only God's going to know. And we have to be okay with that. And, our measure of faith cannot be contingent on us understanding everything.
Right.
And so I got humbled this week, and I'm so thankful. Like, even in, I can be a real turd sometimes. You can.
I wasn't going to say it.
Can get inward thinking, or why you look at your circumstances and wonder why. And God just reminds Job, instead of trying to figure things out, just praise and worship me, and look at everything I put around you is a reminder of who I am. And if you focus on those things, then your circumstances won't dictate who you are. And it was just humbling this week to go through that. And it reminded me, like, living in America, there's so many distractions, and so we have so much excess that it distracts you from the simple things around you that are not really simple. Like, there's a sunrise every day and you take it for granted, but like, who made that happen? And what does it even take to make that happen? You don't know. Yep. And it's just cool how God loves you so much. God loves me so much that even in my arrogance and pride and complaining, that God loves you enough to not just bring his wrath upon you and remind you.
Right. Because
I don't deserve for God to do that. I deserve for God to punish me, and he don't work that way all the time. There will come a time when God's judgment will come down on us, and I want to be close enough to him that I can say, God, I know you well enough to know what the difference is, and when everything falls apart here on this earth because we're not even citizens of this earth, I will be able to be close enough to you to know that that's not what I put my hope in. So I said all that just in context of, we're just distracted. And going on mission trips and seeing how other people live and having those relationships with people is a physical and spiritual reminder of, like, America isn't like God is not just the God of America. And not saying that I'm not a patriot or that I don't love America. I'm grateful for all of that, but that's not what it's all about.
Right.
Yeah. You can do stuff around here too. Lately, the past couple months, I've been serving with it's Wilmington Area Restoration Ministries. And they offer free home repair for anyone who is a qualifying, customer. It's essentially, it's a transaction. It's a customer. But, and I believe you have to be 50% or under the income level for the size of your home in the county that you live in. And veterans, it's even higher. Some grants will allow it, like 70, 80, 90, sometimes in some cases even 100%. It doesn't matter your income level if you're a veteran for some things. But, going to super old homes that just kind of gone by the wayside and ended up being in unsafe living conditions. And, it's not like I've been going to homes and we've been doing a full remodel, interior and exterior, brand new siding, doors, windows, kitchen and bathroom remodels with the high end stuff. It's making a house safe and functional for families with, and it looks good. And, like this past week, changing out some flooring and mainly the big thing was in the bathroom. There were some leaks that had gone on for a while. And so the bathroom floor was unsafe, you could fall through. And so that's the kind of thing, went into an older trailer where, this older lady lived in it, and, she had to tiptoe around her house to find the soft spots to make sure she didn't fall through the house. So it's super cool. And, I go almost every Tuesday and Thursday, and, anybody that wants to go, I normally take the church, the white van, and load up, and I'll take whoever wants to check it out and help. You don't have to have any experience. That's a cool thing. You don't even have to have any tools. You can show up. I normally just take my tool belt and with my hand tools, and they got the saws, they got everything, and they have knowledgeable supervisors there on the job site every day to keep everybody as safe as possible in a construction site that you can be. Obviously, you got to use some of your own common sense to stay safe, but it's cool, and I'm sure that's not the only local missions type thing that goes on in our area. And, share the table, and you can get involved with all those kinds of things and see kind of outside the box of some of us are in a privileged lens of being able to be provided. We can provide for ourselves type thing, and unfortunately there's a lot of other people that can't provide for themselves, and, for whatever reasons. And it's around if you look and make yourself available to get out there and serve in those aspects, and you can get a little bit of a perspective change on how a lot of the world operates. And
yeah, that was just a good reminder to me. Like, you don't have to go to across the world to help somebody or to be humbled, or all that stuff's right in your own backyard, and you don't have to have a passport or a bunch of money to go and be salt and light for people. And I think if we, that's what brings and creates a sense of community, is just being there for each other. And I loved how earlier you were talking about how in Panama, like, the families kind of stick together and stay together, and they're like, they're there for each other. And it's an accomplishment for our family to sit down and eat dinner together. And that's so strange, when you say it that way.
Yeah.
But that's because we have so much busyness and distractions. You don't appreciate it. You take it for granted.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy to. I remember when I was a young kid, like, before middle school, probably, we would actually have meals every night at the dinner table. And then, for whatever reason, once I was like probably high school, we would have dinner in front of the TV on TV trays,
Mm-hmm.
And so it does take away, when you sit at the table as a family without TV on, there's opportunities to talk to each other and have a conversation. But, I don't know how everybody else is, but if there's a screen on in front of me, everything else in the world is gone. Like I don't hear anything. Like I was playing some video games yesterday, and Lindsay was trying to talk to me, and I didn't even know it because I literally did not hear anything. I didn't even hear like a wah, 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 wah. I heard nothing, absolutely nothing. And she like tried to have a full on conversation with me, and then I got done with my turn, because me and the boys take turns playing whatever, and so then I get up and I'd start trying to talk to Lindsay. She just full on ignores me on purpose, and I'm like, what's the deal? What did I do? Like, I'm trying to talk to you right now. She said, I'm reading my book. I'm like, well, I want to talk to you about this. She said, I literally just got done trying to talk to you for 5 minutes, and you said nothing. I said, well, I'm sorry, but I honestly heard zero outside of what I was focused on, and so I had to apologize. But you got to be intentional, man, if you want to spend time with your family, because it is easy. There's so many distractions. Screens are a huge distraction for me and my kids. It's easy to get sucked in, for kids to get sucked into a tablet or whatever, and then they're gone. They're not even on planet Earth anymore. And it's crazy.
What'd you think, Kyle?
I agree
You agree?
with all of it.
Amen.
Amen. No, I do think, that is the biggest thing. Can you say distraction is a sin?
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that'd probably be a lot of people's probably biggest sin.
Yeah, if whatever it is distracting you so much to where God is not top priority in your life,
Right.
then yeah, whatever that thing is that is distracting you, it could be.
It's funny, until I spend time with God and actually have a conversation with him or talk to him or spend time in the Word, you don't notice it as much.
Mm.
You don't even notice that you've been distracted or that your
Right.
priorities are out of line, or, the TV's dictating your supper time, or,
Right.
I don't want movies or TV shows teaching my kids how to live.
Right.
But when you're in the middle of it and you're watching it, you're like, we're not doing anything wrong. You might not be doing anything necessarily wrong, but if you haven't ordered your day in a way that puts God and your family and those things you say you value in that order, then you won't know. And you can justify anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I something like, watching a TV show or a movie together as a family, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but like you mentioned, you don't want TV to teach your kids how to live. Watching the movie might not be bad thing, but it can be a good opportunity to have a conversation after. You watch a movie and there's like a character in it that does this or whatever, and then you can have a God conversation about that. Be like, hey, like, what do you guys think about this person and how they behaved? And they're like, oh, well, then you'd be like, well, the Bible has similar story, whatever it is, and it can be really good learning opportunities for that. But yeah, if you're not intentional with anything you do, anything can be a distraction, and then that's all it is. It's just a distraction. If you don't look at everything with the lens of what does this teach me about God, or how can I be close to God through all those things, then yeah, I think it's a sinful distraction.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's an unsinful distraction, but I don't know.
And I think it's important that we do pay attention, because even good things can be distraction.
Yeah.
That's why I think, just like you were saying a second ago, Nick, and actually you've both talked about it a good bit, but being really intentional about it. And so that's why, that's really what I was thinking of whenever you were talking about your mission trips. And It's just you do have to be intentional about those things, because even as good as mission trips are, like you can get distracted then too.
Yeah.
You know, and so you really do have to be really intentional, and you know, that's something that I know that we've probably said a lot here on the podcast, but just over the course of all the episodes. But I think it's because it's so true, though. It's so easy to get distracted, but you have to allow God to intervene, either through His Word or through just whenever you recognize Him just in day-to-day life, because He's always walking with us. Sometimes we just forget to look beside us, ahead of us, behind us, anywhere He's at.
Internally, whatever.
Yeah.
So kind of the theme I've heard just throughout this conversation is, God gives you resources and opportunities to build relationships with people, to point them to Him. So you can be doing something good as pouring a concrete floor in Panama for people, but if only thing you focus on is getting the job done and you don't use it as time to spend with people, then just getting the job done didn't really do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even watching a movie or fixing something. Like, don't focus on just getting the task done.
Right.
Look at the task as an opportunity for God to put you in a place to be light to people.
Right.
And to grow yourself.
And then it just makes it that much more enjoyable. It isn't like, man, I gotta mix concrete all day today. It's like, man, I get to mix concrete today and hope that I meet somebody that I wouldn't have met otherwise, and maybe have a conversation, or maybe, them seeing the joy that it brings me to do a task, to help somebody that points them in a different direction, or helps them experience God.
Right.
I was listening to a podcast a long time ago, but I remembered the guy saying, he was talking to a pastor in Africa, and the pastor said, you people in America talk about God, but we actually experience God.
Ooh.
And it's funny that we're sitting around in our air-conditioned office talking about God and other things. And he said that because just like in the desert of Mexico, or in less fortunate third world countries, whatever, they literally don't have anything, so they don't have any other thing to place their hope in but that God will come through, because there's nothing else around them to do that.
Right.
And a lot of times we miss like the miracles of God. God does miracles every day, and we miss them because of all of the comfort and all of the distractions and screens and all the things we've talked about.
Yeah.
And for me, I can only speak for myself, but God didn't become real to me, and I didn't want to chase after Him as much, other than being trained that it's the right thing to do, until I had an experience with Him.
Mm.
So all the talking and knowledge can only take you so far.
Right. Absolutely. So kind of the picture that just popped in my head is, y'all remember the movie WALL-E?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that movie.
The robot.
Right? Yeah. I feel like that's a great picture of just today's culture. Whenever they're on the ship and everybody's just kind of floating around in their little floaty chairs.
Yeah. They
They
don't
look
even
no face.
recognize the people around them
Right. And so I feel
until
like
their screen went out.
right.
And then they started looking around the ship, and they lived their whole life. They were grown adults and didn't even know what was around the ship.
Right.
That's crazy.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like that's a really good correlation to what we're in today.
Yeah.
And so we really do have to just get rid, and it's not something that is just going to happen naturally either. We physically and intentionally have to get rid of distractions. And something else that y'all were saying too just kind of brought to mind is Is it easier to wait for somebody else to bring up God, or is it easier to actually you start the conversation? What's easier? Because I feel like this is one of those things of being intentional about getting rid of distractions is physically get rid of it, actually bring up God.
Yeah, I think the obvious answer is bringing it up.
But a lot of people don't see it like that, though, right? Yeah. They think the easiest thing is going to be like, oh, just wait till they say something that can kind of spark the conversation. Man, sometimes that spark don't happen. You're the spark. You're supposed to be the spark.
I let myself down all the time.
Me too.
With that mindset, because sometimes you think, well, if I just show up, if I'm just always helping people fix and do things, then people will see, and that's not necessarily true all the time.
Right. I mean, I think it's good to do the things too. But
your character is definitely something people see, but in my experience, it takes a lot more time.
Right.
And you can't have that close of a relationship with everybody, and you don't have the time for that to always play out.
Right. Yeah. Because that's just what I was thinking of whenever you were talking about, whenever y'all did the floor for the guy. It's more than just being appreciative, that this random.
Yeah, we were only there for like 3 afternoons.
Right.
It's not like you're gonna be there for a couple of years to be able to form a friendship with these people. Living in a touristy area here, you might meet somebody that's only here for a week. You don't have time to.
Right.
To I guess you could get their Insta chat, Snapchat, whatever, and
the
Snapbook. Instaface, and I guess you could maintain a relationship with people over time via social media or whatever, but you got to be intentional.
How much are you going to think about doing that after the fact?
Yeah, I don't. Right. I've got enough things to occupy my brain that I even people that I know but just don't live right here that I see on a daily basis, that I wish I would stay in contact more. It's hard to, because you just, I don't know, there's too many distractions.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know. It's weird. Yeah, maybe it's a false sense of guiltiness because social media allows you to do those kinds of things where, 20 years ago, it's like, well, if you didn't live, well, maybe a little bit more than 20, like 30 years ago, if you didn't live in the town and you got to see them every day, then that was it.
Right.
If you did a long distance phone call, that was expensive back in the day. You guys might be too young for long distance phone calls.
I remember calling cards.
I remember my first when my buddy first got back in the day, cell phone. You still had to pay for long distance phone calls,
right?
Like if you called out of the state or whatever.
You remember when it was free after 9?
Yeah,
that's what I remember. It's free nights and weekends.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it was so funny because I wanted to call somebody like out of state, and my buddy was like, "Here, use my phone. I get free." I was like, "No, you don't." Like I didn't believe him, and it was like right then when they were like changing it after 9 or whatever. It was game changing, but I mean, I think the advancement in technology it's a good thing, but I think for me in some cases it adds an extra little sense of guilt, that I don't maintain certain relationships that I wish I could.
Yeah.
And I substitute wish I could for I have to, or whatever. I don't know.
So just thinking on the other side of what we've been talking about, and we've mentioned all the distractions, but I guess the question for me after kind of an afterthought was, well, what can I do to get rid of the distractions? What can I do to in my I guess thinking about people and how people are going to view me, or people are going to think I'm too radical if I start doing things the way other people don't do them. If you're not on Facebook or Instagram, or if you don't have all the TV subscriptions, or if you don't even have a TV, or if you don't, then are you are you going to lose any of that influence?
Yeah. That's an interesting question, because you want to feel like you can relate to somebody. If somebody's always talking about this one show or this one movie, and I talk about movies all the time, and Kyle doesn't. I can't talk about movies with Kyle because he hasn't seen. I think Kyle's only maybe seen like 3 movies in his whole life.
Yeah, Wall-E is one of them.
Wall-E being one of those.
If it's not animated, I haven't seen it.
But so I can see what you're talking about. If you're just if you feel like you're out of the loop all the time and you have no clue what anybody's talking about, then how are you supposed to make that connection with people? So I don't know. I think maybe simplifying it, and I think you just got to give everything up to God. Like, hey God, what do you?
That's where my mind went to, was just like,
you got to pray about it. God, you got, and then you have to be honest with yourself. You ask God, like, God, do you want me to get rid of social media? Is this a distraction for me? And then you have to be obedient in it. That's with anything. That's with relationships. People that are in an unhealthy, unbiblical relationship. You got to be, if that's a distraction for you, then you got to be honest with God and honest with yourself. Again, kind of like Job. Job was honest with God, and he was honest with himself in the end, and he had a repentant heart, and God honored him in that and blessed him in that. We can't walk around our lives lying to ourselves and lying to everybody else just to feel like we're normal or feel like everything's okay.
Don't be afraid to fail is what came to my mind. Like, it is just as big of a risk to not take a chance and to stay where you're at than to take a risk and do something that is not, I guess, status quo or normal to everybody else. Because then you're going to be, if you stay where you're at and keep doing what you're doing and stay in that circle, then it's going to create more of an opportunity for you to rely less on God. And then you're going to be a lesser version of who you could be and who God created you to be. And then if enough time goes on, you're not going to know who you are.
Right.
And, whatever qualities that are good about you are going to be less because you're discontent with you being stagnant, and constant. And then you get into complaining all the time and looking at your circumstances and whatever is good about you or whatever God uses, your uniqueness or talents or abilities are going to just fade out because you're consumed by what's around you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually just as big of a risk to not do something that you don't know. When Jordan said something about if you're in an unhealthy relationship and you're thinking about, well, I love this person or this person fulfills whatever in my life, and I know that we're not doing it biblically or we're not, following God, but I'm scared to be alone or I'm scared to whatever. I'm scared to take a new job or I'm scared to start this ministry or I'm scared to start this business because I might lose money or relationships that are, people that are in that downward spiral or in that negativity, only thing they're going to do is bring you down with them.
Yep.
And if you're scared to get out of it because you're scared to be alone, like I just explained, it's just as big a risk,
right,
to not do something about it than it is to just keep wallowing in whatever circumstance may be.
Right. And know that you're probably not the only one, which makes you not alone.
Amen.
Our AC came on.
It's loud in the mic or in my ears anyway.
Yeah. First world
Just white
problems.
noise.
First world problems.
I hate it when the air comes on during the podcast. Have y'all seen those videos? The first world problems read by third world people. No. It's real, but the people did it. They had like a bunch of kids from like Africa, standing outside or inside their huts, and like a kid's like, I hate it when my phone charger doesn't reach my bed. And it's like this little kid, that, yeah, it's pretty wild stuff like that,
Wow.
First world problems.
First world problems.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got so many distractions. It's not even funny. But yeah, I think just handing everything over to God and being prayerful about everything is the answer, and He'll take away. He'll point you in the direction to take out things you don't need or He doesn't want you to have. And you just gotta take that quote unquote risk of being obedient. And I've never had an instance where that happened to me, and later on down the road I regretted it.
Right.
Every time I was like, man, I'm so thankful that number one, God spoke to me about it, and that number two, that that God helped me to be obedient in that, because of the it's not even, I don't even want to say reward factor, but it's just the place that I knew that I would never get to or whatever without making that leap of faith.
Looking back on your life, I've never, you saying what you just said, I've never regretted taking a chance. Even if you failed, you still have, now you have that knowledge and experience to know, like,
I don't know, I've had some instances where I regret taking a chance.
Well, let me rephrase. When you've talked to God about
taking
a
chance with God.
Right. Like, fear of the unknown is a scary thing, but if you look back at all the times, like, how did I get to where I'm at? And it was because of God, and you look back at all those things and see, like, God didn't never not come through, not one time.
Right.
So why am I so scared to do something? It's silly, I listened to a sermon Monday, and the guy was talking about, they were going through Psalms and talking about the scripture in Psalms where the deer's panting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a hymn or an old song about it, and the way they sing it's like in King James Version, like the deer panteth.
The deer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is not, like, if a deer is panting, that means something is chasing it, is fighting. If you're panting, that means something has happened. It's not necessarily like a good thing.
It's a weird word, panting. Sorry.
Sounds like
weirder
it could
if you say panteth.
Panteth. When the deer panteth.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nick.
I said that. Sorry. No, you're good. I said that to say,
it's going down.
He related it to, like, this guy's a deer hunter, and he related it to, like, when you shoot a deer, especially if you shoot it with a bow, most of the time it's going to run off. It's not just going to drop exactly where it's at unless you double lung the thing, and it's still going to move. And so you have to follow a blood trail to figure out what direction the deer went. And if you follow it long enough, the drops of blood get less and less. And so you take flagging tape or toilet paper or whatever, some kind of marker, and you put them, where the drops of blood are. Well, sooner or later, your blood trail is going to run out. And what you do is you look back at all those markers and determine the direction based off of the markers.
Where he was going.
So you can stay lined up.
Right. So you do the same thing with God. Like, you look back and see all those times that God, came through in your life, and they keep pointing you in the direction in which you should go. And I don't do it all the time, but when something happens that is hard for me to explain, or you get a blessing, or God came through in a way that didn't make sense and something that you couldn't formulate or figure out, I write it down. And then I got to where, like, I should do this more, and got kind of legalistic about it and started trying to journal every day. And then, and then it was like, well, this isn't really going anywhere. Even though it sounds good, it's, So anytime God comes through and I can't quit thinking about it, I write it down. Mm. So when those times you feel lost or you feel like God isn't speaking, or you're in a Job moment and you're sitting on a pile of ashes, scratching your scabs and complaining, you look back and you're like, man, God, you've came through all these times. Why shouldn't I believe that you'll come through now?
Right.
And at the end of Job, he gets twice as much as he had before. His family gets restored. He has sons and daughters. And
Did you catch that Job had a daughter named Jemima?
oh my God! So
is that where the syrup came from?
This
from Job's line.
Oh, that's a slippery slope. But
I'm just saying.
I did notice that at the very end in 42, Job's daughters were the prettiest gals around.
That's what I'm talking about.
And they had an inheritance. And most of the time,
made the best syrup in town too.
So maybe,
dude.
But now it's Pearl Milling Company. Just in case you were wondering.
Let's don't go down that road today.
Let me wrap it up. It's about to go downhill fast.
Yeah. But, God is who he says he is and keeps his promises. And
are you trying to find Jemima? I know you're.
It's at the very end, like last paragraph of 42.
Yeah, it talks about the names of his sons and daughters.
Sure enough.
The sons don't even get mentioned, just the daughters.
42:14.
Job 42:14.
Yep.
So an Aunt Jemima was born.
And he called the name of the first daughter Jemima, and the name of the second Keziah, the name of the third Karen Hapuk, I think.
Hey, the cool thing is everybody else don't know how to pronounce it, so however you pronounce it, it's going to sound right.
Yeah.
I was just going to call her Karen.
Ooh.
Anyway.
So, in summary of everything we talked about, what's the take home?
Distractions are bad.
Obviously.
I think my takeaway is get rid of your distractions by staying focused on God.
Yeah.
Because God will always point you in the right direction that you'll never regret.
Right.
But be advised, it might take some time.
Yeah.
Like, it isn't part of living in this instant world we live in. We want everything right now, and God don't always work that way.
Right. Yeah, I was about to say something that may have gone on for another 30 minutes, but God's blessings sometimes don't always look like blessings to start with. All
right, wrap it up, Kyle.
All right, ready?
Yeah, do it.
Oh, no, hold on.
Wrong button. You haven't done it in so long, you forgot the button?
It was the right button. I just didn't have the volume turned up, so it didn't have that. Didn't have the bite it normally has.
Pow!
All right. Well, guys, it's been a longer episode than normal, but we just had a lot to talk about, I guess. And I hope you really enjoyed this podcast. Learned a little bit about why we were seemingly gone for a month. We're still around. We're just taking care of people. And but we're glad you're here with us listening again. I hope that you really enjoyed this episode about distractions and, really trying to figure out how to focus on God and tune everything else out. That's what we're supposed to do. Anyway, if you do have any questions, comments, concerns, complaints, you can visit our HR department at gatheringsurfcity.com/WTP. Right there, you can see everything. You can ask questions. You can look at episodes, find out where to find other episodes. I forgot what else you can do there.
Somebody ask us a question, please.
Yeah, please. It would really be helpful. I mean, we have a list of topics on the board, but It may not even be what you want to listen to. I think you want to. That's why they're up there, but I'd rather it come from you. Anyway, again, the website for our HR department is gatheringsurfcity.com/WTP. You know what the WTP stands for. And again, thank you for listening. We will hang out with you again very soon. So, stay cool. Surf City.
Keep it classy, San Diego.
I just watched that this morning. It's one of my 3.
Stay classy.